Hey everybody, welcome back. Got a new video for you. For a while now, my paints have had no home. They've just been on the shelf, kind of tippable at any moment. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna make myself a stand. So I looked at some ideas that were on YouTube that kind of your build your own, do it yourself type thing. Side note, I was going to buy one from Amazon. None of it was what I wanted, and they were boring. In my opinion, they were just boring. So I wanted something that was more personal, something that was a little more interesting. So I decided to build it myself. And this is what I came up with. A flame-inspired paint stand. Oh yeah, let's get to building.
All right, everybody, let's start off with some measurements. We got 31 by 24 centimeters on the back piece. On the front is 3 by 31 centimeters. And the two side pieces, 21.5 by 24 by 3 centimeters. So first things first, cut those pieces out, and then I decided to draw on some flames. Now these are going to be cut out, and they took a fair amount of time to cut all of those flames out. There you can see what I drew on there. Just some random looking flame licks. And then on to the kind of painful job of cutting all of those flames out. So just using an X-Acto knife, I went to work, spent a fair amount of time doing that, and the end result looked really sick. Look at those flame licks, they look good. So did that to the front and the side pieces, and then glued it together. So this is the only parts that I actually measured, that I actually planned out, was these 4 pieces. Now the reason I did that is because I knew the size, I knew I wanted a certain size for the whole project. However, I did not want to spend too long deciding, I did not want to spend so much time figuring out each little inside piece. I just figured, you know what, I'm going to go along as I'm working. I'll measure as I go for the inside stuff, the stairs, the levels where the paints are going to sit, and that worked out fine. It actually didn't take too long as I went along. So just here, gluing this down, I'm going to make sure I use a lot of glue. I want this to be very sturdy. I do not want any of these paints to sag on the steps there, on the levels or anything like that. So I used a lot of glue, made sure everything was nice and secure. Man, this thing just looks cool. This like looks heavy metal. It looks so heavy metal that I decided, you know what, I gotta use heavy metal in the background. So, moving on, I use this first piece here as the first level for the paints and for the inks that I have. Just gluing that in. That'll be the first level. Making sure there's a lot of glue again. Make sure it's sturdy. And then using another strip, this is going to separate the first level of inks and then the second of paint. So just glue that in nice and sturdy. Use an ink bottle to make sure that the spacing is right over the whole level. And there's the second space, that's for the paints. And as you can see here, this is a good example of what I was talking about as far as the stair stepping goes. Just using stairs and risers to figure out how to put the paints on, how far up. And then another good example of underneath some pieces to keep the structure sturdy. These are support pieces that worked very well. All I did was use a small piece of foam core, cut it, glued it right underneath the actual level where the paints are going to sit, and it's actually really sturdy. So once again, just measuring to make sure all the paints are going to fit in there nice and decent. And here's what we have. The structure is done. Looks pretty sick. So the next step was to use black Mod Podge over the whole thing. This is going to give it some more help being sturdy, but it's also going to be a good level to a good surface to paint on.
Are you tired of snow shovels not made for Canadian winters? Small, cheap, and ineffective? The wrong tool for the job, causing horrendous and life-altering injuries. Well, worry no more. Introducing the Like brand snow shovel, technologically built for the harsh Canadian winters. Easy to use and sturdy enough for a Canuck. Like brand, the only true Canadian shovel.
Okay, so here we are. We're going to start airbrushing this project. So what I did was I took a darker green, mixed a little bit of neon with it, not too much. And all I'm going to do here is just spray some squiggly lines over the whole thing. Nothing really intricate, just a couple of S curves and lines, as you can see there. So after that was all done, I switched up the paint and I used more of a fluorescent green. Now you see that red stencil that I have there, all you used there was just a thin piece of plastic, and I just cut that out, just cut out some loops and some swirls type thing on that piece of plastic, and that's what I'm using for a stencil. So taking the airbrush, using the stencil, and then going around those squiggly lines. Now what that does is it's going to make it start to look like flame. As you can see there, it's already starting to look really cool. So just picking the insides of the flame and using the stencil and spraying it. And that's going to give us some pretty sharp lines, some really good looking texture. That's looking cool already. So next step, I used some white and I went over the same areas. Some areas are a little bit different, but I used a fairly heavy spray with the white. I wanted to get a nice fog, a nice gradual overspray from this stencil, as you can see right here. That's going to kind of mist it, giving a really interesting texture, a really interesting visual to these flames. Yeah, that's looking really cool already. So after all that white was done, what I did is I used a darker green, and I kind of went in between all the flames, right where the darker areas were, where the black was. And I sprayed a fair amount of that green color on the black areas so I can get a little bit more depth. That darker green is going to push the background back, whereas the flames are going to kind of pop out more in the front of your vision. So after I did all the green, the darker green in the background, I have this neon green color that's almost a yellow. almost a fluorescent yellow. It is green though. So I went over all the white flame areas that I had sprayed earlier with this super neon green. Now that's gonna just make these flames pop. Total different green color. You can already see how the flames are kind of more in the forefront. Now after we do this, we got one last step that's gonna bring those flames right out. Alright, and here's the last step. So we're going to grab white again, and not near as heavy as we did the last time with the white, but what we're going to do is we're going to go on the inside of these flames and we're going to do a nice sharp edge. Not a whole lot, but just enough to really make the edges of those flames pop. You can see the effect right there. Really looks great. So you can see it's kind of on the inside of the flames where I'm spraying. Make a really sharp edge to it. So after all the spraying is done, I took some clear coat and I sprayed the whole thing. And here's the final product, guys. I appreciate you coming around. We'll talk to you guys later for the next one.